The Knuckles Chaotix special starts out wasting precious space and reiterating what we already know. It's trying to be profound by emphasizing how majestic the floating island is, but it's doing it in the most Captain Obvious way possible, and ultimately it's just completely pointless, especially since this story could have taken place on Carnival Island instead, where the game actually took place, and the plot would have been exactly the same. We already know all this. Yes, we know it's a nature-filled area. Yes, we know Eggman and Sonic fought on it and the island hates strangers. And yet, right after being told that the islanders hate strangers, which I expected to Knuckles and not everybody else on the island, we immediately see a party being thrown on that very island, with not just the freedom fighters, but every freedom fighter Sonic's ever fought with. Fought with? You might want to rephrase that, Sonic. It sounds more like you were fighting them. Also, I guess Sonic already met all these characters off-screen then, because we only saw these characters with Sally and Tails. Anyways, why would they be able to throw a party without immediately being kicked out by the natives? And Knuckles doesn't strike me as the type to go to parties, so why is he here when he doesn't plan on forcing everyone on the island to leave? And I double-checked, and yes, this does take place in the floating island. So I'm already confused right from the start. Also, Rotor must have built a lot of planes for taking everybody here to the floating island. Apparently, the fair, or whatever they were enjoying themselves in, is operated by a guy that strikes me as untrustworthy for some reason. And he says there's a sucker born every minute. So I guess I was right. At least Sonic knows to be suspicious. But you'd expect that of Sally, the cautious one. And then the freedom fighters actually get trapped behind the mirrors. I'm guessing the reason Sonic doesn't immediately destroy them with his spin dash is because he doesn't want shards of glass flying in his face from it. Well, actually, as it's revealed later, they were all transported to another dimension. That was confusing. Then, Eggman gloats to an angry Knuckles about it, having not trapped Knuckles as well for some weird reason. I'm confused about why Renfield the rodent, the guy running the fair, would ever actually want to help Eggman. And he called them suckers, so it's not like he's innocent, he's actually a bad guy. It's not explained so far that Robotnik threatened to roboticize him if he wouldn't comply with him, that's why he helped him. He looks like he has no motivation for what he's doing. Eggman brags that he took away Knuckles' magical powers with the energy he released. And the writers at least think to give a justification for why they didn't have him do the smart thing and trap Knuckles too. Because Eggman wants witnesses to his triumph, to tell everyone what he did. He could have just used a security camera to film what he did and showed it to people, and trapped Knuckles in another dimension. I hope he used the trans-dimensional transporter we saw in issue 30 to do this, otherwise it makes no sense that he'd be able to. Knuckles complains to himself about the situation, revealing that even his sharp knuckles are gone, and his locks have become shorter. Just now, Charmy B introduces himself to him, explaining that he wasn't at the park with all the others because he's a sightseer who wants to explore everywhere he goes, and gather pollen. I guess even talking anthropomorphic bees can gather pollen. But why would he want to? Instinct, I guess, but unless he can turn it into honey and feel comfortable with eating his own honey, it wouldn't really benefit him. What, just because he's a bee? I like that when Espio introduces himself, while uninvisibling himself in a cool entrance, he immediately reveals that he's allergic to pollen, so they care enough to give him an interesting weakness right away, even if it never comes up. That's more than I could say for most of the other freedom fighters who don't even have that. Still, why would a ninja admit that he has a weakness like an allergy so easily? Especially in front of a complete stranger. I'm guessing the reason the rest of the Chaotix hadn't been captured by Eggman is the same reason Charmy hadn't. They got distracted by a butterfly and went exploring everywhere but the fair. This is very convenient, isn't it? Not sure why Charmy would care that Espio was eavesdropping on him though. And this is when Vector introduces himself to Knuckles for the first time. So apparently the story where Knuckles revealed that he saves Vector a lot on his island chronologically took place long after this? So I ask you, what was the point of putting that story out before this one was released? That was not a good introduction to Vector, making him just the idiot that Knuckles saves a lot and is best friends with for some reason. Vector introduces himself as a guy who likes to talk tough while listening to rock music on his headphones so loud they can't hear what people are saying. Already a much more interesting character than all of the other freedom fighters were. You can really tell they cared about the Chaotix. I guess game characters get more care in the writing department. And also I guess he didn't turn down his music in the first place because he liked hearing it so much, even if that meant he didn't hear what people were saying. Still, it kind of feels like he's just arbitrarily doing something stupid for the sake of a joke. After Vector breaks the fourth wall in an unnecessary, unfunny joke, we see an explosion come from a bunch of rocks, revealing that Mighty blasted through the mountain to get here. Why is he here anyways? Why wasn't he at the fair? And Mighty then revealed that the robots near him, Heavy and Bomb, are friends of his. So is this a situation where Mighty was made a gullible idiot for believing that these robots are on his side, when he lives in a world where all the robots are made by Eggman? So they wouldn't have the free will to join the good guys even if they wanted to. Thankfully, this is explained properly. It's explained that they're built by Eggman to seek out and repair damaged systems automatically, but for some stupid reason, Eggman gave them free will, giving them power gems that allowed for independent action. Why the hell would Eggman do that? Because plot convenience, that's why. And just because it granted them free will doesn't mean consciences should logically follow from that. So it sure is convenient that Heavy and Bomb didn't end up like Crocbot and be evil with their free will. Then Heavy and Bomb show everyone the power gems they had made off with, and Heavy says that those gems will be very helpful to them. We cut to Eggman complaining that the rides at the amusement park were all reactivated at the same time. Eggman figures that since each ride was activated by a separate switch, Knuckles must have gotten some help. And then he takes a page out of Robo-Robotnik's book by revealing that suddenly he has a magical material transporter now, which can summon him a counterforce from Metropolis. With that, he summons Metal Sonic. Oh, sorry, apparently it's Mecha Sonic. Not sure why. I guess Eggman fixed him from last time. He seems to just be talking like a generic robot instead of like Sonic. That sucks. After Eggman sends him to destroy Knuckles and his friends, it's revealed, as I expected, that all of the rides were only activated as a distraction to Eggman, with the goal being to distract him long enough for all of them to reach the Hall of Mirrors. All of them defeat Metal Sonic way too damn easily, with Vector taking advantage of some tether rings that came out of complete nowhere and seemed to have purely existed for the sake of a Knuckles Chaotix reference. Metal Sonic immediately downloads himself into a much larger red body to fight them. Wow, they're at the final boss already? That was anticlimactic. Not much has happened here. And Knuckles uses a power gem to make himself grow large enough to fight Metal Sonic with ease, using Chekhov's gun. I like this change, this is pretty cool. Is that bad? Why the hell would he even say that? Of course it is. Knuckles ends up knocking the robot into the Hall of Mirrors, which frees the Freedom Fighters, who are perfectly unharmed instead of writhing in pain from shards of broken glass from the mirrors flying to their faces. So that was good. And Knuckles explains that breaking those mirrors had somehow reversed that earlier energy effect. He says that he can feel his powers coming back and immediately takes advantage of them. I guess I should be all happy and excited that Knuckles got the moment to be a badass in this issue, by having an issue to himself. But I expect that of Knuckles. I don't expect that of Bunny or Tails, because they don't really get to do anything. So aside from appreciating the variety that's not Sonic doing the fighting for once, I don't really care. I feel the same way that I would feel about Sonic fighting. And then the guy who helped Eggman with his scheme for no reason gets caught in a convenient trap we never saw before and sent to prison. That was convenient. I'm kind of confused that after Sonic suggests that Knuckles and his friends all form a team together, Knuckles' and his friends all refuse, with Espio being a dick calling them all a freak show for some reason. I saw them all together earlier, they all introduced themselves to Knuckles at the same time, so I was given the impression that these guys were all friends already, that they already knew each other. And they immediately cut to them palling around with each other in the next panel anyway, so what was the point of making them all say no to forming a team? In the side story, Charmy establishes himself as a playful one of the group who likes to get his friends to play games with him. And then he acts like an annoying brat by causing Vector to get pushed to the ground. And it doesn't look so good on Mighty either because he just goes along with it. The first part of the side story is just a waste of time showing the Chaotix trying to play tag with each other. At least we get to see how they spend their time together as friends. But this is a very pointless feeling downtime. Then they meet Knuckles, who tells them in a panic to get down because they're under attack. Where exactly are they at this point? Angel Island? Better be, or else why would Knuckles be here? so he was perfectly fine with them all moving to Angel Island. Also, Knuckles calling them heroes seems pretty forced. After Knuckles says that he doesn't trust Archimedes and so he might be the culprit here, Vector falls in the hole and Charmy gets knocked out by a bunch of thrown balls. And Knuckles still believes his enemy is Archimedes even after Mighty gets attacked by a robot. A robot, meaning it has to be Eggman. It makes no sense otherwise. And then Espio gets taken out, leaving Knuckles all alone. First, these guys effortlessly defeat Mecha Sonic, and then they get effortlessly defeated themselves by much weaker opponents. It seems very arbitrary. Knuckles then gets called out on by a voice when all the blame is put on him for being in that situation. As if this is supposed to teach him a sanctimonious lesson, out of nowhere. He's told that he could have gotten through things a lot easier if he and his friends had stuck together. At what point did Knuckles not stick together with his friends? Aside from that pointless story where they were playing tag, he was with them the whole time. And then they got annihilated. Ever since the Chaotix were introduced to him, he hasn't spent a single story without them. How in the hell is this his fault? And then he's given a choice between sacrificing his friends or sacrificing his homeworld. Because Angel Island's a separate world apparently. This will probably be explained later who the hell this guy is and why he's wasting time inconveniencing Knuckles and why he has one of Eggman's robots working for him if he's not Eggman. It can't be someone Knuckles already heard from, or he'd recognize the voice. Point is, I can't really enjoy this story too much because I'm confused as hell. I'm not being given enough information, and the issue just ends rather than explaining it. The main story was written by Mike Kentovic and Ken Penders. While not showing off any of the actual levels of Knuckles Chaotix felt like a huge missed opportunity, I really liked the comic spin on the story, having the Freedom Fighters get trapped in another dimension by mirrors to actually explain why Knuckles has to save the day. Although Knuckles and the Chaotix not being at the fair and escaping that fate was very contrived, they didn't really explain it well enough. I love the concept of Knuckles losing his powers, but it didn't really amount to anything, other than an excuse for him to need Vector to swing him around the tether rings he had for some weird reason. It felt like just a hollow, shallow reference to the game, just there to be a reference, because there's no explanation for what the tether rings are and why they're there. Also, Metal Sonic got defeated way too easily, showed up for his final battle with the Chaotix way too quickly, making the story feel really short and anticlimactic and disappointing. He didn't talk at all like he did around Sonic, instead talking like a generic robot. And that combined with his name being Mega Sonic makes me suspect that this is actually a completely different robot from him. I'd rather believe that, to be honest. Though I heard the comic would get a huge problem with making Metal Sonic a wimp, to the point where even Sega themselves had to step in. So I guess this is the start of that. I feel like they didn't do quite enough to establish the distinct personalities of the Chaotix. I get that Charmy's the playful one, Espio's the serious one, and Vector's the one who loves listening to rock music and talks tough, but we don't get much depth to them. Not sure about Mighty's personality though, I can only assume he's an optimistic person. And all I know about Heavy and Bomb is that they defected from Eggman. Still, these guys are at least distinctive feeling and have charm, which is more than can be said for most of the other Freedom Fighters. I hate how they seem to arbitrarily refuse to be a team just to join up with each other as if they never refused at all, meaning the panel just confused me for nothing. And the side story, written purely by Ken Penders, is something I pretty much hated because it just had the Chaotix get all picked off one by one, after they had effortlessly taken down Metal Sonic, mind you, and they end the story before we could find out necessary information about who exactly the villain actually was. So it's just bleak and confusing. It's just there for setup, making it impossible to enjoy on its own, making it basically worthless on its own. I hate stories that have no value on their own for being really short and not giving us enough information. The story can't be enjoyed on its own, so it would have been better if we put the story at the start of the story it was leading up to, rather than it being completely separate from it. All in all, it looks like the Knuckles Chaotix special was really disappointing. And it sucks too because I loved the new plot points introduced by the adaptation, but not enough actually happened to make it feel like they went on an adventure. They activated all the rides, they fought Metal Sonic, and the end. That's like if Knuckles Chaotix made you fight the final boss before you even beat the first level. Well, next up is issue 31, which will hopefully explain what I've been confused about.